Hello, everyone. Welcome to this short session on menopause and soy products. I'd like to take a couple of minutes just to introduce myself. My name is Dr. Liz Simpson. I am a registered health psychologist with the Healthcare Professions Council and a chartered psychologist with the British Psychological Society. I am a senior lecturer at Ulster University and I have worked there for over 20 years. I have almost 30 years experience of working in the menopause as part of my research. This really began when I did my master's in health psychology and did a dissertation looking at the psychological impact really of the menopausal transition. This led to a PhD based in the Royal Victoria Hospital in Belfast at the regional HRT clinic with the late Professor William Thompson, who was the then head of obstetrics and gynecology at Queen's and the Royal in Belfast. I was probably there for around 8 years because I did my PhD part-time and had 3 babies along the way as well. So I really do feel that I got a good sense and an understanding of the types of issues and problems that menopausal women are experiencing during this time. As a health psychologist, I tend to adopt a biopsychosocial approach to health, and I'm going to explain a little bit now about what I mean by that and how it relates to menopause. So really, I have an interest in how underlying biological processes and mechanisms, so in the case of the menopause, changes and fluctuations in our hormone levels sort of across the menopausal transition, really impact on our physical health and on our mental health, our psychological well-being, and also how this change in a woman's life can impact on social situations, such as our relationships. And that could be relationships with family or relationships within the workplace. There's also a lot of social change that occurs around the menopausal transition, such as becoming a grandparent or a carer, maybe for an elderly relative, or perhaps being faced with retirement or divorce. All have the potential to impact on quality of life and psychological well-being during the menopausal transition. So the focus on my work really has been to gain a better understanding of menopause itself and the health needs of women during this time, and to more effectively design and implement interventions that will promote well-being in menopausal women. So from this 30 years of research, I have, throughout this time, I've supervised several PhD students and numerous MSc projects, all looking at health and well-being during the menopause. I have published over 40 scientific papers and 2 book chapters that have really focused on healthy aging and included many projects on the menopause that I have successfully completed. I have also presented my work at national and international conferences, and I have collaborated on a number of funded projects on menopause, one of which was for the Alpro Foundation, looking at the health benefits of soy drinks on menopausal symptoms, mood, and cognitive function. And I'm going to be looking at that in a little bit more detail as part of this talk. I've hosted a number of menopause cafes and public talks for organizations and community groups to really help to raise the menopause profile across the UK and beyond, and to provide a space for women to share their experience of menopause. So I'm going to have a little look now at menopause and why soya products might be beneficial or why they might be important. Soy is what we refer to as a plant-based phytoestrogen. So what do I mean by that? Well, basically they share similar chemical structures and properties to our own endogenous estradiol or estrogens. They also bind to the estrogen receptors throughout the body, and they mimic the effects of our natural estrogens. So what they can actually do is, if you're perimenopausal, there's evidence to suggest that they can help to kind of maintain and level out your estrogen levels if they're taken sort of at an early stage in that menopausal transition. And they also then sort of mimic those effects of our estrogens. So they help to kind of, stop hot flushes and night sweats and things like that. So they provide an alternative to hormone therapy. Basically, if someone isn't able to take HRT, or they don't want to take HRT, then they can provide a sort of a natural alternative to that. Where can we find them? How can we get them? Well, there's a number of foods that are rich in phytoestrogens, and they include things like beans, soybeans, cereals, potatoes. Lots of fruit and veg have phytoestrogens within them. Lentils and peas are some examples of foods that are rich in phytoestrogens. We can also take supplements. So, there's lots of phytoestrogen supplements out there. A good example of one might be red clover. They tend to have a higher dose than what you would get if you were taking sort of phytoestrogens within the diet. So you just sort of need to be aware of that and how that might impact on your health and well-being. But they are recommended by the European Food Standards Agency for management of things like hot flushes and night sweats that women experience at menopause. So they are, they have been tried and tested and recommended as a supplement for hot flushes and night sweats. When we look at the benefits of phytoestrogens, as I've already said, they really do act on the estrogen receptors that we have throughout the body. And what that helps to do, it helps us to regulate bone metabolism. And of course, once we go into the menopause and beyond, we are at risk of osteoporosis. Our bone mass tends to decline, and it can be quite difficult to kind of maintain that. So it helps to regulate bone metabolism. And there's research and evidence to support this. It also can promote cardiovascular health as well. It promotes the heart, and it may actually protect against some forms of cancer, like colorectal cancer and endometrial cancer. And it doesn't seem to impact on the research that's been done so far on the thyroid function or reproductive tissues, so breast and cervical cancers. What it seems to do, it doesn't actually bind in the same way as estrogen would do. It binds on a slightly different part of the receptor. So you get all of the benefits without the kind of the harmful effects of extended estrogens for a number of years. And there is some studies out there where they have given SOY to women who've had a history of breast cancer, and it doesn't seem to have any kind of sort of thickening or any harmful effects in most of the studies. Now, maybe not necessarily in all, but it certainly seems to be quite positive, the research that's been done to date. There's a lot of research as well that seems to suggest that it can actually help with our sort of general health and well-being. Certainly it improves hot flushes and night sweats and may mediate the effects that can have on our moods. If you're up sort of all night with night sweats and you're not getting enough sleep, it stands to reason it could have a detrimental effect on your mood. The study that I was telling you about or mentioned, we called it at Ulster the ALPRO study because it was funded by the ALPRO Foundation, and I worked with colleagues in nutrition, and Pamela McGee was our sort of principal investigator on this particular study. We were one of the first RCTs or randomized control trials looking at trying to control menopausal symptoms with dietary phytoestrogens. So what we did was we asked our ladies who took part in our study to drink soya milk, basically, or soya drinks. And they contained different amounts of soy. So the very lowest dose had 10 micrograms of soy per day. The medium-sized dose had about 35 micrograms, and the large dose had about 60. Now, what that translates to in real terms is our lowest dose was about half a glass of soya drink. The medium-sized dose was about a full glass, and our larger dose was about 2 full glasses of a soya drink to be consumed every day. I have to say the ladies that took part in our study were very good at spreading the amount that they took across the day, and they became quite creative in relation to how they managed to consume the drinks. So some would make, they put it into their porridge in the morning, or they would have it with their cereal. Some would make chai lattes with it. They would make milk puddings. They were quite creative and were very good at kind of stretching it out across the day. So it was a 12-week intervention. And, as I say, we had the 3 groups, the sort of the low, medium and high dose. And what we found was that hot flushes and night sweats were really improved for the medium and the larger dose. So for the glass and the 2 glasses a day, they really did find a marked improvement in their hot flushes and their night sweats. We also found that positive mood was increased across all of the groups. So it seemed to have a beneficial effect right across, the different doses of it for positive mood. So it made them feel better. They just felt generally better. And we also found that for all of the groups, there was a slight improvement in working memory and processing of information. So, being at the speed with which that they were able to kind of process some information, which was a positive outcome as well. What recommendations, based on our research and based on some of the other work that we have done outside of the LPRO study, if you are at an increased risk of breast cancer or ovarian cancer or any of the sort of the reproductive cancers, I would strongly recommend that before you start a soy supplement or increasing soy within the diet, that you would, speak to your GP about sort of the risks, and hopefully they could kind of help you look at your individual history to make that decision about whether or not to begin a soy supplement or to start sort of increasing the amount of soy that you are taking in the diet. As I've said, most of the research suggests that it's non-detrimental, but I think, because of it's bioactive and it will have an impact and it will change things within the body, I do think that that consultation should be made with your GP just before you start. If you've no sort of risks, then, I would recommend that you increase dietary phytoestrogens. It's recommended, as already mentioned, by the European Food Standards Agency, that women consume somewhere in the region of between 40 and 70 milligrams per day to really see health benefits. That includes things, like soy and soy products, so soya beans, soya drinks. You get yogurts, you also get desserts, but I think it's also worth mentioning the yogurts and the desserts have very low levels of soy included within them, and there might not be enough there to really see any kind of health benefits. But it's also found in things like flax seeds that you can add to salads, sprinkle maybe over, a stew or something like that, or add to breakfast cereal. Oats, whole grains, lentils, apples and pomegranates are quite high in phytoestrogens. Carrots and celery are the same. Coffee and nuts, in particular cashews, almonds, peanuts, pistachios. And of course, nuts are better consumed raw. We're not talking about dry roasted or salted here. We're talking about raw nuts. And a handful each day is enough really to kind of see some benefits from it. If you're thinking about your whole diet and what you need to do, looking at things like the Mediterranean diet or the MIND diet can provide sort of low doses of phytoestrogens within them. And it's partly to do with the increases in fruit and vegetables that they're kind of recommending. You're kind of tapping into those foods that are rich in phytoestrogens. So I would like to thank you for listening to this short presentation, and I hope you have found it really useful.